This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, I love our weekend show because it is very different to the weekday show. It's not because I don't love the weekday show, but I'm very competitive. So I love anything where you and I go head to head. And that's what this is about. We're each nominating the biggest story of the week, what we think is the biggest story, the most remarkable story, and the sleeper story, which is always very exciting to see what we think is going to be a bigger story further down the track. And then our favourite story. And as I said, because it's a competition, we need an adjudicator. We need a judge, a fearless, fair judge. We can't find one of those. So we've got our Fear and Greed colleague, Adam Lang, instead. Adam, good morning.
Good morning, Michael. I'll be known as the next best thing.
That's right, the big number two.
No, I don't think. No, it wasn't number two, as it turned out. Like I don't want to spoil
There's
the party.
There's a couple of others. Then we got to me.
The kind of next best plus thing. So no. I mean, we had Jen Duke. Got to say, we've had Stephen Koukoulas. We've had Sherelle Murphy.
Judge
they were
Murphy.
Great.
Yeah.
Now we've got Adam.
And Adam, I know I was probably getting off to a bad start to insult the judge in your introduction.
That's what we do, Michael. That's what we do.
I know. And I just wanted it to be consistent. I want this episode to be consistent with all others, and just to know that it's on you to prove that your decisions are fair and unbiased, because I'm smarting from last week's ruling, which went against me, which on review, I feel it should have gone in my favour. That's my own personal review, so I've reviewed your own decision. But anyway, can you give us a very quick rundown of how the scoring works, just for anybody who's listening to this podcast for the first time and they're confused as to how you do it?
Very well. Criteria: topicality, timeliness, economic impact, very important, my subjective bias, and melodrama. We like to bring a little bit of that. And look, speaking of melodrama, a little bit tired this morning, have to confess. Went to see Rat Cat at the Factory Theatre last night, got Foo Fighters tonight. Musical weekend, very exciting way to start December. So I might be a little cranky from time to time, but I'll give it my best.
Rat Cat, don't
go now.
Stop now. Don't go now.
Fabulous.
Oh, that was their mega
and
hit.
It was great to go to a gig, a rock and roll gig again. Wow. Wonderful.
And Foo Fighters tonight.
Yeah.
Well, aren't you showing off? What was it last week, Michael? He had the T-shirt, was the
Nick Cave T-shirt.
Yeah,
that was Oz Music T-shirt day, of course.
Yeah, and now you're talking about Foo Fighters, Rat Cat.
I really should get to something contemporary, shouldn't I?
Have you seen Beyonce by any chance?
Well, I love the fact that you tried to get the Fear and Greed Christmas party to be at Rat Cat.
Yes, that was a good call.
Which feels like it was largely just to cater to your own personal preferences, whereas I'm far too young for Rat Cat.
Everyone would have won.
Please. All right, let's get into the competition. I feel that I was hoping, Sean, that you were going to be sledging at him and just like level the playing field a little bit there, but you didn't. You really kind of came out on his side. So,
well, Rat Cat, Foo Fighters, how can I argue? Had Nick Cave last week.
Biggest story of the week. Would you like to go first, Sean?
Of course I would. Guess what it is?
Oh, no.
Economy.
The economy is not allowed. We have been through this so many times. The Joseph intervention, which was a letter from Joseph, a listener, months ago, who said the economy always wins, therefore the economy shouldn't be allowed to be the biggest story.
Yeah, I mean, that was, and then next week you did the economy and cheated, and that was all over Red Rover. It's not even part of the game anymore. The economy, where do I start? I could do an omnibus, but I won't. I'm just going to talk about the Reserve Bank and economic growth. The Reserve Bank this week kept the official interest rate on hold, and if it increases in 2024, well, that'll all depend on whether the inflation rate keeps falling towards the central bank's target band. As Michelle Bullock, the Reserve Bank governor, put it, the bank is resolute when it comes to an inflation. I love a resolute bank, particularly a resolute central bank. The Reserve Bank will keep looking at the global economy, trends domestically, and the outlook for inflation and employment. This is the last meeting of the Reserve Bank board. So, well, this year at least, that means we are pretty much off the hook until next February. In fact, some economists are starting to talk about rate cuts next year because the economy has slowed too much. The other big piece of economic news this week was the Bureau of Statistics September quarter economic growth results, GDP, gross domestic product. Adam, you'd love that one, wouldn't you?
I do.
economic acronym, yeah.
I hang on these quarterly figures.
So the pace of growth in the economy is slowing. Households are struggling. Living standards are at their lowest level in 8 years. Quite incredible. The economy during the quarter expanded by just 0.2%, and that was purely thanks to migration. If you base it on per person, it went backwards 0.5%, a per capita recession. So individually, we're actually going backwards. For the full year, growth is running at about 2% or thereabouts. The big slowdown is in the household sector, not much spending, thanks to interest rates, petrol prices, all that stuff. Now, I may have said this before, but that was just a prelude. Ignore that time. This week, and this time we have data to prove it, is the week the Reserve Bank will decide not to lift interest rates again. Certainly markets reckon that, with the Aussie dollar falling, equities rising, and bond yields dropping. There is no way this can't be the biggest story of the week. Michael.
Well, seeing as Sean has demonstrated a flagrant disregard for the rules, I feel quite comfortable doing this story without any risk, Adam, of being penalised by the judge.
Oh.
Getting guidance already.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, there is more than one element to this story. Does that make it an omnibus story? Also, yes. Am I going to do it anyway? Yes, again.
This is a curious approach.
It is. I mean, do you think we can get this in under 5 minutes or not?
It is doubtful. I'm going to be honest. It is doubtful.
Oh,
it is.
God.
No.
Right up. I got a cup of tea.
Friends, Romans, countrymen.
If
cut off your ears.
If you two could just stay silent for 2 minutes, I will have this done in 1 minute and 40 seconds.
All right, go.
Okay, all right. I'm doing this omnibus story for one reason. Well, multiple reasons, but I'm not going to give you multiple reasons. But I'm doing it because it's been such a massive week in politics where everything that's happened in politics this week trumps what's been happening in the economy because these are one-off major events that have a huge impact on the economy and on the Australian people more broadly. Where to begin? I'm going to begin at the end. Now, don't look at your watch, Adam. You two said you weren't going to interrupt, and that includes kind of weird movements and kind of miming things and being just generally rude.
Do you know we're at minute 10 into this segment so far, and we have not any idea what Michael's story is?
We're getting a progressive idea of what it's not.
Yeah. You know what this is? This is collusion between a contestant and the judge. And I'm lodging a formal protest against the two of you colluding against
me. Who?
I am going to put together a tribunal, an appeals tribunal, so that I can appeal the decisions made.
Supreme Court of Fear and Greed?
So they are going to be our esteemed guest judges. So who have we got? Stephen Koukoulas, Tim Burrows, Jennifer Duke,
Judge Murphy.
And Sherelle Murphy. So I'm making a list here. So we've got Judge Koukoulas, Judge Burrows, Judge Duke, and Judge Murphy, all sitting in judgment of our judge. I think that feels fitting.
We might make them wear the horsehair wig, but...
We might.
Okay.
But I'm going to send them this audio. They're going to listen to this podcast and they're going to let me know whether they agree with your judgment, Adam, or whether they feel that I should win more than I do. And if they agree with me, I will tell you all about it. If they agree with you, Adam, we shall never speak of this again.
Oh, that's fair.
2 minute mark.
Oh, okay. Stop. You said you weren't going to interrupt. Okay.
Not during the 2 minutes. 2 minutes is up.
My time starts now. Okay. Starting it again from now. So, as I said, I'm going to begin at the end because the end of the week saw a big win for the government. They did a deal with the Greens and the crossbench to pass the most contested, most challenging, and if you're a mining company, probably the most hated part of its industrial relations overhaul. The labour hire laws that you've probably seen the same job, same pay campaigns about are going to target arrangements used by companies like BHP and like Qantas as well. So it's not just the miners, but the miners themselves are furious about it. And there'll be more changes likely to come next year in terms of the IR overhaul because debate will then kick in over the other half of the laws. This is the gig economy changes, etc. But putting that to one side, what has happened this week is major, and the government needed the win because they've been copying a hammering now for the last couple of weeks over a High Court ruling that saw 150 people released from indefinite immigration detention. Now, this week there was an epic rush to pass emergency legislation designed to lock up some of those non-citizens who'd been released from detention, those who are deemed to still pose a risk to public safety. Now, already a handful of former detainees had been rearrested in the lead up to this legislation passing. And with every arrest, the pressure on the government was increasing because national security and immigration laws are something that it's an area that the opposition is obviously very comfortable pursuing. And so it's been a major political headache for the government. But that wasn't all this week. And this isn't an omnibus story at all, actually. This is just the week in politics. Don't give me fingers, Sean. What's this mean? 3 fingers? That's 3 stories, is it?
I only saw one clear finger.
Now I know how it like a primary school teacher feels dealing with a class
4 minute mark.
This is offensive. Anyway, the other big development in politics this week, which stop it. Put your hand down, Sean. Now I do sound like a teacher. I'll send you out.
Toddler.
I'll send you out of the studio in a second. The other big development this week was at National Cabinet with the states backing NDIS reforms. Now, this might not sound like it is so major, but it is hugely significant because consider the fact that the NDIS this year cost $42 billion and is forecast to blow out to something like $100 billion per year by 2032. So the fact that they've been able to get these reforms agreed to by the states is massive, hugely significant.
5 minutes. Okay, focus. I'm not even going to look at you. I'm going to hold my hand up so I can't see either of you right now because you're just being annoying. So big step, obviously, the NDIS reforms. It's going to see conditions like mild autism not qualify for NDIS packages and instead come under a different funding arrangement. Now, that story on its own could actually be the biggest story of the week because the economic impact over the next decade, Adam, to point out one of your key criteria, is massive, absolutely huge. And that has happened this week, so it is very, very timely. Just in case that wasn't enough happening in politics this week, we've also got the COP28 Climate Summit happening in Dubai. Sean, hand down. 6 minutes. Australia is only a relatively kind of small player, a minnow, really, in all of this. But you have Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen saying that Australia is going to endorse a formal phase-out of fossil fuels. Now, I think we can all feel for the negotiators in the room at the summit trying to formalise a statement on behalf of the nearly 200 or so countries. You're never going to satisfy everyone, and the economic importance
formation of countries.
The economic importance of getting it right cannot be overstated. Can you imagine what it would be like trying to coordinate 200 countries when I am sitting in a studio with two other people, and I can't even get you two to behave? Oh my God. You know what? I'm done. I am just done. This is the closest I've come to a studio walkout. Right now, a dummy spit. Adam, take over, would you?
Okay, will do. Michael's spectacular grouping, without calling it a cluster. Labour high laws, detention of non-citizens, National Cabinet, NDIS reforms, COP28, huge. Very, very big, but Sean's got to win this one. This is incredibly important to everybody. Interest rates stopping, and I know, Sean, you've called it. I think it is
Nothing
terrific.
Happened.
But the figures
rates didn't move. They stayed where they are. Nothing happened in the economy. IR laws changed.
Michael, you had 8 minutes. You had 8 minutes. Give Adam a chance.
GDP slowing this week.
He's gone.
He's walked standards out. Dropping. Household spending, is down. This is really important. And you're looking at a government at the midway mark that its electoral tides seem to be turning. So this is very difficult terrain for the government. And so the interplay between these two stories is important, as in business and politics. So, Michael, was a cracking story, but Sean just has to win on this one. His story affects every single person who's earning money, paying tax, struggling to pay bills. And so I hope he's absolutely right. I'm backing his call that this is where interest rates should stop rising.
I don't know what to say. Let's just move on, shall we?
Let's move on to most remarkable. You know, can I go first in this one?
Yeah,
Sean?
go for it.
I feel like I'm still reeling, but you know what? I'm going to make this one very quick. And I promise this one is actually going to be quick. Don't look surprised, Adam. It is actually going to be quick. India this week passed a major milestone. The share market in India hit the $4 trillion mark for the first time ever on, I think, Tuesday, Wednesday it was. It is now the fifth largest equity market in the world and is catching up to Hong Kong. Now, why is this so remarkable? Why is this so significant for Australia?
Excellent question.
Yes, well asked. Excellent question too, don't you think? Because India is becoming an economic powerhouse, and Australia is in a prime position to trade with the world's most populous nation. Now, we have very good diplomatic relations. Just this year, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has visited Australia, and our Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has visited India. We've had trade delegations go as well, CEOs visiting India, universities opening in India. So the fact that India's share market is growing so quickly, key benchmarks have risen more than 13% this year, suggests that we are doing the right thing by getting closer, by tightening those relations, getting very economically intimate with India. Now, the speed of that growth is remarkable. The potential for Australia to benefit is equally remarkable. And even more remarkable is the fact that this story has finished in under 2 minutes.
Yep, fair point. Fair point. And you used one of the great phrases that we've ever used, one of the best phrases we've ever used on this show, economic intimacy.
That's right. I thought I'd coin it.
I'll get your inflation, raise your unemployment, and put that into your GDP. Eh? Yeah, that sort of stuff.
Holy hell!
I like it.
Sean, please give us your remarkable story.
Well, I'm not sure why that's remarkable. I don't know where the relevance of that is, but what is remarkable? This week we heard that Rio Tinto will lift capital expenditure in the next 3 years to $30 billion, including about $6 billion at its Simandou iron ore project in Guinea. Now, Simandou will be a major avenue of growth over the next 5 years for Rio, more so than the Pilbara. They're opening mines in the Pilbara, but that will just keep things as they are. The real growth for Rio is in Guinea. That country will eventually produce about 5% of the world's iron ore output. The downside of this story is that the money has to come from somewhere, and it's coming from Rio's decarbonisation efforts, but I'm just parking that for the moment. The second part of the story is Fortescue shipping its first batch of iron ore, with its first ship departing from the Gabonese capital of Libreville this week, carrying ore from the Belinga Iron Ore Project. Now, the shipment comes just 10 months after Fortescue signed a mining convention with the Gabonese government. Now, that government was subsequently overthrown by a military coup in August, though Fortescue was able to continue. Not a major play for Fortescue, but more of a proof of concept. Rio, Fortescue, Aussie miners getting into Africa, taking on all that sovereign risk, and Fortescue felt it, but they kept going, digging up iron ore, which is what they do best. I love the foresight. I love the ability for an Australian company to transfer their expertise to Africa, the region where the next big boom in iron ore is coming from. I just think it's remarkable how well those two companies have done to actually start exporting iron ore, or in the case of Rio, spending more to export iron ore, for the long-term success of those companies, but Australia as a country, as a global player, pushing into the African market. Remarkable. Adam, you've got to judge two kind of international stories here.
Isn't that brilliant? They're both great stories, and I learned a lot this week about them, and they're both reflective of change. But India's change in the economic rankings is so swift, and the scale of that enormous population, which, as you pointed out this week, Sean, pipped China for population earlier this year. I think that has to win because it is so significant in terms of the international power dynamics. And in the end, where will some of this iron ore likely go, even from Africa? Could be to India, could be to China, could be to other nations around the world that are expanding with our help. So I love the India story. Michael wins this one.
God, watching Michael's face while you're talking up his story is quite
He's
spectacular.
not exactly a poker player,
No,
is he?
no.
I was trying to do a poker face. That was my attempt.
The smile was getting bigger. The smile was getting bigger.
I will note that we are running very, very late.
I wonder why.
Lengthy judgments, I suspect.
Adam? Yeah, yes, your judgments.
Sorry, everyone. I'll keep it more crisp.
Please. Thank you. All right. So it is 1-1. Let's have a very quick break. We'll have to make it a short one. And we'll come back with the sleeper story of the week. All right, Sean, we're looking for the sleeper story of the week. Now, sleeper story is one that's not getting the attention that we feel it deserves or is going to become a bigger story at some point in the future. Do you want to go? Sorry, that sounds like it's actually causing causing me pain to invite you to give your story first. Would you like to go first, Sean?
Yeah. Now, look, I'm not playing to the judge here in any way, shape or form. The first story I did was all about the economy. Second one was about Aussie companies doing well. Third one, workplace. Oh, yes. Got Adam all over it. There's growing momentum to not only work from home, but also ditch all those meetings. A new survey from Slack Technology says spending more than 2 hours a day in meetings can hurt productivity. People stuck on Zoom calls and in conference rooms for over that time are less able to concentrate. The survey of more than 10,000 desk workers globally, including from Australia, found that 2 hours of meetings is actually the tipping point. Those who said they spent too much time on Zoom calls or in conference room were more than twice as likely to say they didn't have enough time to focus on the work that matters. In fact, half of executives polled said they had too many meetings. About a quarter of rank and file workers said the same. The effects are the same whether the meeting is virtual or in person. The survey also found, perhaps surprisingly, there are a bunch of younger workers who want more meetings. Let's just discard them. Don't know what they're talking about. Now, this is a bit of a COVID overhang. During COVID, the number of meetings attended by workers jumped by nearly 14%, although the average length decreased by 20%. That's according to the Harvard Business Review. Apparently, we don't spend as much time chatting in the meetings, therefore the meetings become shorter when they're online. That Harvard Business Review report said that 70% of meetings kept employees from doing productive work. Anyway, I think the worm has turned, or the worm is turning, and hopefully Adam knows where that reference comes from. All these meetings, they're on the way out. I think this is a real sleeper. I just don't think we'll ever go back to the idea where you have a calendar and you have 8 hours in your day, of which 7 are meetings. I think people realise you can't be productive anymore if that's what you're doing. So, my sleeper story, the worm has turned on the too many meetings saga. Michael.
That's a good story. What? Don't laugh.
He deigned with faint praise. Go on.
No, I'm being genuine. God, I can't even give you a compliment.
The only thing, Michael, that I'm worried about that story, right, just between you and I, that's hopefully Adam's not listening, is I'm all for the fewer meetings. Adam might actually be the guy that wants more meetings. He might be part of the younger generation, sort of the outlier in the younger generation, who just wants more meetings. It's high risk.
I'm sensing some conflict here. This could be an exciting time for us moving ahead, as we've got Sean, who doesn't turn up to half the meetings, and Adam holding meetings on his own.
Motion carried.
And here I am, Switzerland in the middle here. Just trying to...
Is there a quorum? One. Yes, there is.
That'll do. All right. I feel this story didn't get anywhere near enough attention this week. So by definition, it is a sleeper story. Therefore, it qualifies for inclusion. The efforts to transform Australia Post into a 21st century business focused on parcel delivery in the e-commerce age has stepped up a significant gear this week. Now, Australia Post recorded a $200 million loss last financial year, and it's faced with what is a pretty stark decision to make: evolve or perish. So it has chosen to evolve, and nobody across the country will get daily mail deliveries anymore. But there will be.
But, and we love buts. Go on.
We love the double.
Just the look on your face when I give the double but. There will be daily parcel deliveries, which makes sense when you consider that Australia Post delivered 500 million parcels last year. Can you believe that? Can you even just try and picture how many that is? 500 million parcels. That is just... But
they're not delivering letters every day.
And Sean, those who still send letters. Now, I'm thinking in particular of grandparents sending birthday cards to grandchildren and the like, will now be forced to fork out $1.50 for a stamp. Now, $1.50, that is extraordinary. But it is, unfortunately, Adam, the reality of the situation. Now, this week, Australia Post has officially begun the transition from a 20th century postal service to a modern 21st century parcel deliverer. It's evolution, but it's happening quietly. And without me, here's the kicker. Without me putting it as my sleeper story and giving it the benefit of this here tremendous platform, there'd probably still be people standing out by the mailbox next year wondering where the postie is. So, to those people, I say you are welcome. This story is for you.
They've been doing it for a few years.
Yeah, but...
I'm just standing up. You are standing up for the people. As you said, you are standing up for the people standing by the mailboxes, waiting for the post that's never going to come.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's good. I'm standing up for all those Australia Post workers whom you've just insulted by saying this week it decided to get into the 21st century.
Great debate. I'll go quickly. Sean wins. The reason, of course, is I love this story about meetings. Once upon a time, can you imagine? I liked hosting meetings. I thought they were useful. And then I learned, okay, if I've got to cap this to be productive. I really do. And understand how people who are new to a role, new to a company might need more and more support to get started, be inducted well and so on. But over time, you need to put pressure on performance. And sometimes too many meetings just gets in the way of that. So I think they can be well-intentioned but very, very wasteful if not used properly. And so to me, that data is fantastic. Now, that data was from Slack, right? So they got a huge data pool internationally to call upon. I think, Michael, though, what we're seeing with Australia Post is just incremental on what has been happening for some time.
Here you are, just Sean is feeding you lines and you are using them verbatim. This is more evidence of collusion. I'm writing that down. I don't know why. I'm writing down the words more evidence of collusion.
Oh. Judge Murphy, Judge Koukoulas.
I'm taking this to the panel.
Judge Duke.
Oh, that all sounds cool.
I do remember Judge Murphy. We love Sherelle Murphy, but when she was judge, at one point she said, I don't really want to give anything to Sean, but he does win this category. So I think she has disqualified herself from the jury, the appeals tribunal.
No, the appeals tribunal is taking shape, and I will be using it this week. I'll be sending them this podcast and asking them to say, was Adam right? And if they agree with you, I will never tell you.
Righto.
Favorite story?
Michael, you go first.
All right. Who says romance is dead? Now, I know this story is what...
Sian. For those who don't know, Sian is Michael's partner. That's a bit rough. Sian, I'm sure that's incorrect.
That is savage. I am very romantic.
Pretty good, though.
I'm going to ask her for evidence of me being romantic, and I will provide it to you.
No, not interested.
No?
Not interested.
You're getting it now. Now, look, I know that this story is, 8 days old or so there, but, that's the rare triple but.
But.
Like any true love story, it is timeless.
I know this story. This is good.
And is therefore eligible for inclusion. Now, if there was an award for doing things by the book and all above board, it should go to these two, BHP boss Mike Henry and Canadian National Railway Chief Executive Tracy Robinson. Now, if these two, right, if these two were like any of us, just regular Joes and everyday Ediths, and they met at a bar or online, and he was a teacher and she was, I don't know, a paramedic or something like that, or if she was a plumber and he was a a marketer, they could have a relationship. Nobody would bat an eyelid. No one would mind. Nobody would care. But when one party is running a mining giant and the other party is running a transport company that's building a railway to that mining giant's potash mine, well, suddenly it gets just a little bit more complicated. So these two had to get board approval to date. Lucky for them, though, that steps had already been taken to guard against any potential issues, and they got the all clear. Now, isn't that just beautiful? Isn't that romantic? They will make movies. They will make movies about this one day, rom-coms about this. My big question for both of you, though, is what would they talk about on their date? Because presumably they're probably not allowed to talk about the project, which is a bit of a problem, because it would be at least a problem for me, because once you take away potash and once you take away trains, they're my two favourite topics. I would have nothing left to talk about on this. So I can only assume that they will have run out of things to talk about.
Won't last.
And that is a waste of perfectly good board approval.
I just think it's a funny story. I mean, I feel sorry for them because, look, they ran into each other.
Yeah, the pressure on even having, dating.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah. Oh, I mean, good. I'm not actually going to concede, but I do give you points there, Michael, because that is such a cracking story.
It's a great story, isn't it?
Okay. Mine, very, very, very huge economic impact, this one, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
It's about penguins.
Okay.
Penguins are champion power nappers. We found out that this week. Over the course of a single day, I'll get to the economic impact in a moment. Over the course of a single day, they fall asleep thousands of times, each bout a few seconds long. Now, a study by the Neuroscience Research Centre of Lyon in France and a researcher at the Korea Polar Research Institute, which would be a cool place to work, Korea Polar Research Institute. They did a study, appeared in Nature. It's actually a big addition to the study of sleep. The study of sleep itself is kind of interesting. We got serious about it. It wasn't until the 1900s that we actually started thinking about sleep and what it meant for health and for economic richness and goodness. And the study of animal sleep is even better. How much animal sleep varies a lot. Brown bats, they sleep about 20 hours a day. Lions and gerbils, as well as rats, are over 50%. Cats are about 50% as well. Dogs sleep about 11 hours a day. Adults about 8 hours. Cows, less than 4 hours. What about the giraffe? 2 hours a day. That's it. Also, how animals sleep is really cool. Human brains shut down entirely when we sleep. That's it. Seals, they shut down one side of their brain, keep the other one awake so they can continue swimming as they doze. Anyway, back to the penguins. While in the oceans, the birds don't sleep. About 3% of the time they're sleeping. When they return to their nests, though, their brain waves slow to a pattern that is typical for sleeping birds, but only for a few seconds. They then wake up again, then they fall back asleep again. In fact, they did this cycle 600 times an hour. Now, that is really cool. And what we can learn about that as humans and as people interested in the economy and business and politics and all that stuff is the microsleep, the benefit of the microsleep. We could all become penguins. And so when Michael's talking for 8 minutes or so, we can have a bunch of micro sleeps and miss nothing. Absolutely nothing. Huge economic impact on the world because, well, the meetings, for example, 2 hours of meetings, it'll be 1 hour because we'll be sleeping half the time. Michael talking. That's the full 8 minutes, I suppose. Big, big story, but just crazy. The life of a penguin. My favourite story for the week, Adam.
That's a great idea for efficiency, Sean. Bringing in the micro sleep.
Yeah. Let me take one now.
We just did. So, so maybe I'm a romantic, but I think Michael has to win this one. I think it is just incredible. And so the pressure on these two people just approaching each of their boards and saying, hey, look, got some other business to cover in the meeting today. Hoping to get your approval on something. It's like, Mum and Dad, can I go out on a date? It's like, oh, wow, okay. Yeah, Michael, you have to win this one. I think that is an excellent favourite story of the week.
So now it's 2-2. So we're going to, and Adam, of course, for anyone who hasn't listened to this before, and I'm sorry if this is your first experience of this podcast because it's been a little bit.
If it's a first experience, there's no way they're still listening.
No, it's been a little bit erratic. But now Adam goes back and counts up the scores that he gives us for each individual category, and he's got kind of his points matrix, and he puts it all together, and he gives us a score out of 100 because it's 25 points per category, and there's a lot in this. And Adam is currently furiously adding up.
Oh, no. It's 2-2 on the story count, and it's equal on the points.
Oh, ka-ching, 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 ka-ching.
But, geez, that feels like a failure as a judge. I have not determined a winner.
What was the total score? Was it above 90?
90.
90.
Each.
I'm going to be very generous here, purely on the back of Trace and Mike hanging out together.
You're going to let romance win on the day?
I think romance, love conquers all. Yep,
Yeah.
It's yours, Michael.
Love is all around us.
Thanks, Sean.
Mm.
I don't know how I feel about getting a pity win out of this, but I'll take it. I'll take the win wherever I can get it. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you, Michael.
And thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
Make sure you're following the podcast.
Why?
I just can't imagine anyone still being here at this point. No, but join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed Business News. If you're still with us, have a great weekend.